Welcome to the David Spisak Show. Thank you so much for being here today. And listen, I know that you've got options, you've got choices, but I feel very confident. Listen, if you're in the automotive industry, if you're on the OEM side, if you're on the vendor side, but especially if you're on the dealership side in the fixed operations department, or you're the dealer, the general manager, the sales management team that wants to sell more cars, keep more customers, bring them back, and populate more people in your service department, you're really going to like what you hear over the course of the next 30 minutes. Why? Because my guest today is Doug Brown, and I've never had the opportunity, honestly, to meet Doug Brown before just in the last couple of weeks, and I was fascinated by his journey, and so I wanted to bring it to you. So without any further ado, first and foremost, Doug Brown, who is the director of field operations for all of North America for a company called Expel. I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today.
I appreciate it, David. Thanks for having me on. Thank you very much.
Ray, and I really appreciate, it's funny. I don't know why this is. I mean, I kind of do, but I've been in this business for about 45 years, Doug. And in the 45 years I've been in this business, I feel it's a little bit analogous sometimes with families that have siblings, to where one sibling seems to get, for whatever reason, a lot more attention, right? Not that they should, because the other siblings are great. Maybe the other siblings, even had better grades or better outlooks or better whatever. But for some reason, sometimes you have situations in life where you get disproportionate focus on one area of a situation. I kind of feel that way with dealerships. And I came up through sales. I came up through sales, selling new cars, selling used cars. And in the 45 years I've been in this business, man, oh man, does that sibling get all the attention, the new car business, right? You go in the store, and I'm telling you, 90% of the focus and attention and conversation is probably going to have something to do with selling a new car, getting a new car, maybe the new model of the new car that's coming. But yet, what's interesting is the more I've been in this business, Doug, I've learned something. Fixed operations is the heart of any dealership. It is the epicenter, in my mind, of culture. It is what's going to dictate, ultimately, your level of profitability. And maybe most importantly, it's going to determine how effective you are at getting clients to come back in the store. First and foremost, before we jump into anything else, do you agree with that?
1,000%. The first car is sold up front. The remaining of the vehicles are sold in the back.
All right. So I want to start right there, because when I get people on here, the thing that I'm always super interested in, oftentimes more than anything else, is their journey. You've been around doing some kind of work for probably better than 25, 30 years, right? You've been since you left high school or college, you've been working probably at least 20, 25 years. Is that fair?
35 years in the car business. Yes, sir.
35 years. Okay. So there's where I want to start. So you grow up, wherever you grow up, you go to high school, and it sounds like you went to college. Where'd you go to college?
Went to college in a junior college and then UTD in Dallas. So
wonderful. Okay. And that's great. And so then from there, you end up in the car business. How did that happen? Because I find that most people in this business had no plans. They just kind of fell into it.
No, so I started in the parts department. So great question. So I started in the parts department when I was going to school, and my degree was accounting. So I was, I'm a numbers guy, and I just love processing numbers. And so that's what I was going to. Then the next thing you know, I physically get into the parts department. Then I make a transition to being a service advisor. And so back then, and we'll say the early 90s, it was 91, 92, CPA made about $48,000, $50,000 a year. And here I am in college and, working full-time as an advisor, working full-time as a student, very difficult. And then I realized how much money I made that year. And I was like, hang on, I'm good at math, but I think there's a lot of opportunity here in this dealership world. And that kind of started my path. So from there on, then I grew from there.
Okay. So you end up in parts. Was there anything in particular that you liked particularly about parts?
Well, I say
It's an interesting
the
department. It's super
parts
complicated.
is yeah, parts is they're very unique guys. But if you want anybody, depend on anybody, and have someone that's going to be there solid every single day, it's a parts guy. Parts, employee retention, they have the most highest at the dealership. Everybody knows the parts guys stick around the longest. They're the official librarian, so to speak, of a dealership, but they're the great asset that they have. So I liked it, but I also like to talk with customers, and I saw on the service drive and really relate to the cars and to the technicians. So that was kind of the path that led me that way.
Okay. Great. So now you went from parts,
Mm-hmm.
then you go to college, then you come out of college, you don't go back to parts, you end up in a service department on a service drive, right?
That's correct.
For how long?
I was there for almost 10 years. Then I went into AutoNation Management. They acquired our store, stayed there a couple of years, and then I got recruited to go to corporate side of Van Tile Automotive Group.
Okay, so hold it right there. Because again, it's so interesting the way life works, isn't it, Doug? I mean, think about this. If AutoNation, a lot of times when AutoNation, Sonic, some of these publics acquire a store, some of the people, the employees in the private cap stores look at it as a negative. And oh my God, now we're going to be corporate. We're going to be this, we're going to be that. I looked at it as a positive because I spent 8 years, with AutoNation, and I always refer to that as that was my MBA in retail automotive. And think about this. If they don't ever acquire that store and you get transitioned into that corporate, more structured, more formalized way of doing things, you're honestly probably of no interest to a Van Tile organization. Fair?
Fair enough statement. Yeah, when I went to AutoNation Management, service management school, it was eye opening, and it helped propel me to the next level. You're 100%, and I learned a lot from AutoNation at the very beginning, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And so as a result of that, it sounds like, I mean, it had to be a combination. Not only did you have to get elevated, up leveled when it came to your training and your knowledge, but you still have to deliver on performance, right? I mean, you still had to be good at what you did, right? Or same thing, a Van Tile not going to be interested.
No, it's all about numbers, and you had to hit the numbers and grow the numbers. So absolutely.
So talk to service managers out there, talk to fixed ops managers, talk to GMs and dealers out there, or even people that are not in the business. So you never really spend time inside of a service department. In your mind, after 35 years, what have you learned? What does it take for a service manager, fixed op director, those leadership positions? What does it take to be great in a fixed ops department right now?
I think, one of the things I look at is leadership. If you can lead people and people will follow you, that is huge, right? Because especially when you want to grow and have your dealership grow as you need to every single year, that's one of the foremost things I look at is leadership. Do the people follow you? Do they want to be led? And, are you on the right path? So that's one of the things I look at for first and foremost.
Okay. So now you end up at Van Tile. You stay at Van Tile for how long?
So I'm on the corporate side of Van Tile. I'm there 12, almost 13 years. We got acquired by Berkshire Hathaway. So I stayed on a little bit longer before I went to my next venture.
And then what was the biggest thing that you learned? I mean, it's kind of funny. I kind of sometimes equate people's career journeys with driving down the road. Hey, maybe we're in a really great classic car and we're rolling down Route 66, the one and only Route 66, and you see those mile markers, right? And I kind of feel like careers have those kind of mile markers, right? Those very important milestones, if you will. What was the big takeaway in that milestone, that mile marker of being with Van Tile and subsequent to that, Berkshire Hathaway?
One of the things that the division I was in was in our training aspect, for us, and we trained advisors, helped set up with a few guys the Van Tile service drive process, that we didn't have at the time. So that was interesting. We then went into having a training school that we basically trained the trainer, made all the service managers come to. It was a 2.5-day course, learning everything from your CRM tool to your DMS tool to selling on the service drive, selling on menu, how to do a walk around. All those things and above is what really I enjoy doing, is, going and getting those people, and then the service advisors coming to the class and getting certified, to really sitting there growing people. That's what I really enjoy, is like saying, hey, you're at this level, let's go to the next level. How do you get there? Here's the path, right? It doesn't just start off just going out with a clipboard or a tablet and going on a service drive and saying hello to the customer. There's a lot more things in depth with that.
So I got to ask you, so after all that time, you probably walked into parts, walked into service. You're hyper focused on tasks. You're focused on objectives. You're focused on hitting numbers. Then you're a service manager, fixed op manager. It's about hitting numbers. It's about objectives. It's about delivering on that. And of course, it's about taking care of customers too. But then you go over to the corporate side of Van Tile. You go through AutoNation service management training, then to Van Tile. Now you're looking at things from through a different lens. You're now at the 50,000 foot level. You kind of see how everything works together, and maybe that changes your mindset or your perspective. And do you sit here today at the end of that particular chapter, by the time you got out of Van Tile and where you sit today, is it your belief today that leadership is as important or more important than the managing side of being a manager? In other words, what's more important to you, the leadership in a department, if you're in a management position, or the day-to-day management of tasks and objectives and things of that nature?
Yeah, I think, you have your processes, your, everything that you do, and you go to your dealership in the morning and you run your reports and you look at everything. I mean, those are numbers, to your point. At the end of the day, those are numbers. I think the leadership, really, really projects you to the next level when you're growing. I think that's where the kind of the core process or the core foundation is of where it's at in a dealership today. You've got to have leadership, and people want to have a great leader, without a doubt.
I mean, here's the way I look at it. Tell me your thoughts. Number one, I can remember every leader I've ever worked for, or every leader that impacted me, because they stay with me, right? Because chances are they mentored me in some way. They taught me things that I was able to carry forward and use, and then pay it forward almost with people that work for me. Managers were more the focus of purely in the moment, right? I got to get these numbers done. I got these numbers. I don't remember managers much. Or if I turn around and remember them, they may be nice, but they also never leveled up to being, in other words, I know somebody's a manager when they're a manager for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. That's just a straight up manager. Leaders, you'll notice, go from the front line to managers, to directors, to corporate, to other things. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 1,000%. To your point, I can remember today. I remember all the leaders who I followed and listened to. Absolutely.
So you end up going through these different chapters or milestones in your automotive career on the retail side. And you went from Van Tile, then you went to work for a group, right?
We went to go work for an auto group, was the fixed operation director of an auto group. We had 21 stores. Was a great experience. I knew going in that he was getting them financially ready to sell. So went through that and helped him proceed through that. And then I went to the next chapter in my life, was coming over to PermaPlate, which led to Expel.
So again, another kind of interesting milestone or defining mile marker or defining moment. is you're at that 21 store dealer. If they don't end up getting themselves ready for sell, interested to sell, you may be here right now. You may be sitting there right now.
Right.
But again, life threw you a curveball. I love this about your story. I've heard 3 curveballs already. And each time you said, I think I could do something with this. I think this is a sign that for an opportunity for the next chapter or the next opportunity versus, oh man, this sucks. I just had somebody call me, super nice person, and they've had those types of curveballs happen 3 times the last 6 years. And you know what he said to me? I kind of feel like I'm just snake bit, because I go here and then this happens. I go here and this happens. I said, well, I don't know. I say, I look at it that every time you go somewhere, you make something happen.
Right.
Right. And then it creates an opportunity for the next stage. I love that you have that mindset. So you mentioned that you went from permaplate to there and then permaplate to Expel. How did that happen? How did that transition from permaplate to Expel happen?
So
Say, for those who don't have an awareness, permaplate is this might be, some people might scoff at this, but I think as a guy who's been in this business a long time and who used permaplate in my stores, I think permaplate's one of those rather iconic products. It has stood the test of time. But how did you end up being going from permaplate? And you were chief operating officer there, right?
Right.
So running this big company.
Yeah.
Then you wake up one day, you're at Expel. How'd that happen?
So there was 2 divisions in permaplate. Was permaplate and then we had permaplate films, which I was a COO of, which was the labor division where we'd go out and install window film products on cars. So that was kind of the vision that I embarked on. And then how we got to Expel is a lot of the film that we use, we reboxed it and called permaplate, of course. And it was from Expel. And then about 4.5, 5 years ago, David Jorgensen started talking with the family at Expel. And next thing you know, the acquisition happened and, it couldn't have sold to a better team. And I'm so glad I'm part of that team today here at Expel. So that's kind of the transition in.
Great. Okay. And then how long have you actually been with Expel as the director of field operations?
So ever since the acquisition, so we're looking at 4 years, a little bit over 4 years, right at it.
Okay, so let's jump into that. So for people that are not familiar with Expel, the one thing there's a couple things about Expel that are super noteworthy to me. One is whenever I go to dealership clients, and they use Expel, and I just feel like in the industry, as I move around from store to store, working with different dealers to help them grow their businesses, Expel is almost like a tissues or FedEx or things of that nature, meaning you may overnight something with DHL or USPS, but somebody's going to say, I'm going to FedEx this, right? I'm going to grab a tissue, even though it's not made by, I'm going to grab a Kleenex, even though it's not made by Kleenex. Right. Expel just seems to be everywhere I go, kind of the de facto or the bar. Correct. And most of the dealers that I've worked with, it's the actual technical term for your film. They wrap their cars, they wrap the door edge guards, which are clear. They wrap the front hood to protect it from paint damage. And the name of that product is
our paint protection film.
So it's a paint protection film or PPF for sure.
There you go.
Okay, great. Yes. Okay, great. All right. So PPF is the main product and it just seems to be the standard. What has made Expel's product different? How has it become kind of the gold standard out there for not just people in dealerships that use it to differentiate themselves in the market or to augment fixed revenue, but because but it seems like anybody who's out there doing film, Expel seems to be the go-to standard.
Yeah, and I think when we got into the paint protection build portion of it, we were first an IT company, DAP, the patterns and everything else that goes along with that. But what, our self-healing film, we kind of set the standard, where you can scratch the film, you can pour hot water or a heat gun, and it's going to self-heal itself. And it just amazes me.
Whoa. You're getting religious now. Getting spiritual on me.
Yeah.
Hold up. Wait a minute. I've got to rewind the tape a little bit. Say that one more time.
So our paint protection film is self-healing. So if you get scratches, like say branches or other things from the road, the debris, it will self-heal. Whether it's the hot sun, hot water, a heat gun, it just self-heals itself back to the state it was.
So that's crazy because film is not new. Film has been around for years, maybe even decades. But there's always, in the past, there's been some problems with it.
Yes.
If it got damaged, you have to remove it, take it off, and pay for it all over again. Second thing is back in the day when I first started seeing film, and we even used film, put it on cars, it would turn yellow. Yes. Right? You ever see that? Right? Or left a lie. It's like, yes. Or if you put it on, you couldn't take it off and then reapply it. Right?
Yes.
Like almost like a Post-it note. It was on or it was off. So if you had a problem, it was coming off. You had no choice but to start over again. So first thing you just said is this is nuts. So I'm driving down the road, minding my own business, going down Route 66, having the best time of my life. Bam, a rock gets thrown up. It's my car. And I pull over at the gas station and now there's this mark in it. And you're saying if I happen to be driving through Tucson, Arizona, and it's 95 degrees, I might go to my next stop. I'll go outside and think I was imagining something because now it's fixed.
That is correct.
That's nuts. That's crazy. How long has that product been in existence?
So that product's been in existence, for, 10, 15 years, but it's, the industry as we do here at Expel, we continue to grow that product even better and better. You talked a little bit about yellowing. We knew when we started developing this product years ago that was one of the main deals. Our product does not do that. And we also stand beside our product with a 10-year transferable warranty. We're the only one in the industry that does that. So when you get it on your vehicle, we're going to stand behind that product.
That's great. Now, I'm interested in, so a couple things. So PPF, paint protection film, is a key product for you. What else do dealers use in their service departments of their dealers? What else do people that are in dealerships rely on from Expel? What else do you have that is considered the gold standard out there?
Our windshield window tint film. It's in the industry, we got one of the most lifetime warranty windshield protection film. Not protection film, but windshield tint. So the highest ceramic, UV protection coating that we have. So that is our film that we love and is very, very used in a lot of our dealerships across the country.
So you've got the PPF is on the paint somewhere. Yes. You're talking about now on the glass. So people that want to apply some kind of film, whether it's darker or lighter, what they're interested in is protecting the inside of the car, most notably the occupants from UV rays, I take it, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then I was told that you're going to be having an announcement at NADA.
Yes.
About yet another product. Can you tell me what is that one?
So that's our windshield protection film. So we've been working on this for years. And we are launching it at NADA, displaying it on a vehicle there. We have a Toyota Camry. We're going to be putting it on, showing customers, but it is helping prevent all the damages that come from road debris. And we know nowadays that an average windshield with, all the sensors and the reprogramming is right around $1,300 to $1,500 on the low end to replace a factory windshield.
She just replaced one not too long ago for almost $4,000.
Yes.
A windshield, right? We used to get them for a couple $100.
Couple $100.
And then they ended up with the little, remember the old wires in them or the defrost? Right?
Yes.
That was high tech. But now, holy cow, there's so much technology embedded in that, within the confines of that glass. It has driven the prices up through the roof. It's absolutely crazy. So that's a brilliant idea. So I could technically have XPEL film inside my windshield to reduce UV, but I now can have it on the outside. And this seems like a pretty smart continuation or evolution of the protection you put on the paint of the car. You could protect me there, but now if that rock hits that front hood and then it bounces up and hits my windshield, I'm solid. That's what they're saying.
Absolutely. And it's we're very cool. And a lot of research has gone into it, but we will be displaying that at NADA this year.
Great. And then do me a favor. I have to ask this. And, titles are always interesting because from company to company, they may change a little bit. So I need to know if I'm a fixed operations manager, service manager, dealer, GM, whoever I might be, what is the director of field operations main priorities? What is your focus? What does your team do out there in engaging or interacting with me as a dealer or me in the fixed department to help me somehow improve my results?
Yeah. So let's just say you want to do a window tint all your cars and put some PPF on your cars and you want to preload them. So our team goes out there and with our technicians across the country, we help establish that, help set that up to your dealership. And we have labor force that can physically help install those products at your dealership because not everybody can window tint a car or put paint protection on it. We also have in-house programs that we can, help train, get your guys up to speed to do paint protection, other things. But we're going to go out, our labor force, and help, your process and help gross in your service department and also in your new car sales department. And we even see it in your used car departments.
Okay. The dealers that are out there that are clients, what would you say has been what has been the biggest, most noticeable positives, Doug, improvements that as they work with Expel and because they brought Expel products? I was talking to another dealer recently that uses Expel literally on every car. He will not take, I don't care what model it is. He told me he puts it on the front of the hood. He doesn't do the whole car. It doesn't wrap the whole thing. Cause of course your film undoubtedly can wrap a car to change its color, I'm sure, and do some of those things. But he's putting it, he told me, on the front hood. He's putting it on the door edge guards, which are completely clear. So it doesn't change the look of the car. Right. But he told me that what really was big from his perspective is as they're dealing with significant downward pressure on new car prices, margin compression, it's allowed him to recover some of that margin compression. At the same time, he's recovering it in a way that is, he said, is fully FTC compliant because it's a physical product.
Yep.
And I got to remember this. Hold on. He also said it's doing it in a way that really delights, his words, not mine, delights his customers because it gives them a better ownership experience. They're much less likely, obviously, to have a problem that they're going to have to deal with. And it helps them to differentiate his cars from everybody else that sells the same franchise and the same models. So is that common? Is that what you consistently hear from stores? And I'm really curious. Second question would be, is it both, do stores use it both in the sales department as well as in the service department?
Yeah. So the first part of the question, yes. So that when you have dealership programs that help, what separates me from the red F-150 compared to 15 miles down the road to the next red F-150? Well, Expel helps with that, that growth. Just to your point, the door edge cup guards. The door edge cup guards, the amount of gross that you can make if you sell 100 cars. I was looking at my notes the other day. If you sell 100 cars a month and you just do door edge cup guards, well, you'll have an annual gross of almost $250,000. So it's really that aspect, helps the financial aspect, and it's a hard product, FTC compliant, like you're saying, and it helps really separate the dealer down the street from you and what you're doing, and it really helps your sales team. Right. We can go in and train, and also your sales team is they can go out there and explain, hey, this paint protection that we have here on the hood of the car, it's a paint protection film that self-heals. It helps them build more value into the product that they're selling, because everybody's selling the same BMW. Everybody's selling the same Chevrolet truck. What do you differentiate, like you're saying, from the other market? So that's one thing, to your point.
Okay. Great. So somebody who's never seen Expel, never used it, doesn't have it currently. I was with a client recently. This kind of blew me away, in all honesty. This is a client who has a BMW store. I won't say who it is. They're in the Northeast, and they were in the process of building a new facility. Expanding the facility. And part of that was growing their fixed ops department because they'd kind of maxed out on capacity. And you know what he told me, Doug? This will put a smile on your face. So he's taking me through it. And then he said, oh, this is our XPEL area. Now, in all honesty, I didn't even know what XPEL was at the time he said that. I'm like, okay, XPEL area, right? So, and like a superhero area, Marvel. I'm like, what is XPEL? And he tells you what XPEL is. And I said, okay, well, how do you use it? And he says, we sell it in the front. We sell it in F&I. We preload it sometimes on cars. We sometimes sell it in the back where people want to get that out of the car. But I said, well, why are you doing it? He said, it has been such a huge uplift in my fixed gross that when we started looking at building this facility, I wanted to actually add an area that was just here, because he treated it like it's a business, literally a business in the business. Do you see that in stores?
Well, yeah, I can go reflect back to the days when I was running stores and helping guys run stores. Is you look at a bay and it's going to produce this amount of gross every single month. So you sit there and you go, okay, now I have a product and a service that's going to produce this much. So every part of the real estate, if you're not looking at it as a growth opportunity and a revenue producing aspect, yeah, 100% agree. That's how you look at it. And that's why we're seeing that grow more and more facilities like that.
Okay. I think that's so interesting. And I mean, everybody, one of the things, I was with a couple big groups this morning. And one of the things I'm seeing was in both of these groups, they both have multiple stores. If you looked across the entire enterprise, I thought it was interesting, and I'm seeing more and more, their service departments were up year over year in sales revenue, double digits. Their gross in service was up in both cases a little bit more than revenues, which tells you, of course, that they expanded margins. That's super cool. That's a superpower for net profit. But in both, it was the complete opposite scenario in parts. Parts revenue was down, and parts gross was down twice as much as the revenue was down. So for example, if revenue was down 5, gross was down 10. So you have the complete opposite situation as you have in service. And I look at it almost like new and used. In used, I oftentimes see revenue up, margins up, service the same. New cars, revenues are down, margins are down more than revenue. Parts, revenue down, margins are down. I think that's just kind of a byproduct of a shift, yet another shift in our industry, Doug, where our parts to labor ratios aren't the same anymore, where cars that are having service done via software, there are no parts.
Right.
0% parts to labor ratio, right? And so you have to constantly find a way to reinvent. If the pie's shrinking, you better, like a dealer told me, you better bake a bigger pie, right?
Yeah.
You better find some other things that's going to allow you to grow. And I think one of the things I'm really like hearing about what you're talking about is exactly that. Is that I may have a parts department that's shrinking. I might have more EVs in my franchise coming in, which have a lower dollar per RO. They have lower frequency. What am I going to do, Doug, to mitigate, to offset for those things that are happening? They're very real world and they're happening across the industry. Do you see Expel from your time with Expel? I mean, I'm guessing you see Expel as a viable path for any dealer that wants to grow fixed revenue, expand margins, maybe expand gross on the front end because of what we talked about before. I mean, tell me about that. How do you see Expel's overall potential in 2025 to impact dealers?
Yeah, to touch on what you're saying is like you have the manufacturers over the last 10 to 15 years that have been changing their oil change intervals, right? Going from 3,000 miles to 5,000 miles to 10, and then some even 15,000 miles. So you look at that and you're like going, okay, so we used to see a customer twice a year, 3 times a year. Now we're seeing them, if we're lucky, 1 time a year. So when we see them, hopefully we get the revenue that we can, the services that are being provided to the vehicle. But, it's about touch points. If you're only touching that car so many times, what services, to your point, can you provide to help with the growth of the revenue of the dealership? And that's one thing, to your point, Expel, what we want to do and what we're seeing is growth, compared year over year from 23 to 24. And our field operation and at Expel, we're seeing growth because we're seeing that, hey, how do I substitute the loss that I'm having? So it's a great point you bring up.
It's great. For dealers that are out there that have Expel now and they are not knocking it out of the park, which I have always found is typically just because it's a lack of an understanding. It's an engagement issue, right? They haven't gone all in. I think today, honestly, Doug, if you're not all in all day, every day, I honestly don't know what you're doing in this business. I really don't. I don't. But if you're going to have, there's one of my favorite quotes of all time. And for anybody out there listening, please excuse it being gender specific. I wasn't around 100 plus years ago when this dude came up with it. But the quote goes like this. It says, a man who has good books and doesn't read them is no better off than a man who can't read. I love that. Because how many times can you apply that in a dealership, right? You may have a great tech solution, but if your people aren't utilizing it, please explain to me how you're any better off than somebody who doesn't have it. And so if you are a dealership that had the interest, you were intrigued, you were compelled, and you signed up and you said, this is going to be great. But then maybe your service manager left and somebody else came in and they never used it before. And they said, yeah, I'm just going to park it. Or maybe you have somebody to where they didn't go like a couple of these dealers all in. They certainly didn't build a fixed area and they're not preloading it on every car. So they're not all in all day, every day. For those stores that have Expel, have dipped their toes in the water, what's next? What should they be doing this year to be able to hit it out of the park?
The one thing, if you have, let's just say you have a store that's just doing window tint and that's all they're doing, they're preloading. Well, I sit there and see customers, I had a managing partner one time that I went over to I said, let's go walk your pre-owned lot, and went over to the pre-owned lot, and you could see about every other car, every third car had paint protection film on it. And I said, look, these cars are going somewhere and getting this done, right? Whether it be paint protection, window tint, or whatever. If you're going to go all in, hey, go all in. I have a good friend of mine. Last year, he decided at his dealership that he was not going to do any addendums. So he wanted to have more sales of his Ford trucks. Well, lo and behold, the year ended and he had less sales because he wasn't all in. So guess what he's doing this year? To your point, he's going back all in, because you think about customers today, one of the number one things they do when they leave a dealership, depending on the area, you'll get window tint put on, or paint protection. So those are one of the number after sale products that's happening today. Why not, as a dealership, take advantage of that?
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough. I think you have such an interesting journey. I think that any one of us can learn. I mean, I was going to say I may be too old to learn, but you're never too old to learn. I love seeing people every year. It seems like at some point in the news cycle, they're showing some 85 or 90-year-old walking across the university stage, getting their college diploma. I love those people. I love them. I love anybody that reminds us that we're the only ones who could stop us. I love people that remind us that we are the X factor. I love people reminding us not to miss those defining moments. You had a defining moment when you went to college. When you came out of college, you could have done anything. You landed in a service drive. When a store got bought by AutoNation, you could have quit and said, "I'm not doing this." Okay, when you ended up at that other organization that they got themselves ready for sale, you could say, "Oh my God, here we go again." Right. And yet time and time and time again, during that point, I don't know who did this for you. I don't know who embedded it but I'm guessing it's your parents.
Absolutely.
And other people that you've been fortunate enough to be mentored by. But man, those are people we just can't say thank you enough to, right, Doug? I mean, it's just like, can you imagine if you didn't have that poured into your brain? You'd be a totally different person.
So chapters in your life, and I want to go and continue to have more chapters.
Well, listen, I look forward to your next chapter. I mean, you're in the midst of a continuing chapter, but continuing to add great chapters with XPEL. The more I've seen about XPEL, the more dealers I've reached out, spoken to about XPEL, the more I've looked into some of the products they do. I didn't even know. I mean, this is a global company, for God's sakes. This is no pipsqueak, upstart company, regional. This company, went public. It's global. I mean, this is serious. And the company and everybody I met in that company is dead serious. They don't take themselves seriously, but they're dead serious about helping dealers up level their business, their revenue, their profitability, and their retention. So you should be proud to be part of Expel. And I'm really excited to, are you going to be, I think you'll be at NADA?
I will be there, sir. Yes.
I'm going to drop by the Expel booth. I want to meet some more of the people. I want to learn even more. And you mentioned they're going to have people actually doing things physically on cars. I would love to see that. Yes. Anybody listening? Yes, I'm geeking out. But I look forward to see you and the rest of your team there and learning more. And I want to personally just thank you for the positive impact you've had on this industry. And undoubtedly, there's got to be service managers, parts managers, fixed operations directors that are out there in the industry that are out in those positions because of what you did, how you impacted them, what you poured into them, and the leadership that you've developed along the way. So thank you for that impact on the industry. And for anybody who took the time to listen, man, I really appreciate it. If you know somebody who's got a parts department, service department, maybe even they're independent, looking for a way to grow their business, or you just have an interest in learning more about, yet another way that a dealership can reinvent and mitigate some of the downward pressures that we're experiencing right now by bringing in something that legitimate, viable, valuable, and differentiated, I'd check out Expel if I were you. So thank you for taking the time to listen. Please share this out to anybody who wants to hear a great entrepreneur story, wants to hear a great growth story, great leadership story, or just wants to learn more about the fixed ops department or Expel. So thank you for joining. And please take the time to leave a review, good, bad, or ugly. I'll take them all. I like them all. And please go to davidspisak.com because you could get show notes on this episode. You could learn how to connect with Doug Brown and how to learn more about what he does and the journey that he's had in retail automotive. Thanks so much. See you next time. Doug, thank you. Appreciate you so much. See you next time, everybody, on the David Spisak Show.